And welcome back to another episode of the Gun Collective podcast. My name is Adam Kraut.
And my name is John Patton.
And this week's show is brought to you by Freedom Munitions and Hollow Sun. I almost forgot what we were saying next.
I didn't talk over the intro, so it threw you off.
Yeah, it definitely threw me off.
Go.
So I know a bunch of you guys out there are anxious for us to talk about the events down in Parkland, Florida, and we will get to that a little bit later. But we're going to start because we have a guest today that we're very excited to introduce you folks to. So today, our guest is Chris Cheng. Chris's resume is a laundry list of accomplishments. He was the champion of Top Shot Season 4, has written a book, and frequently contributes to the firearm blog. He also enjoys food and travel, so Chris and I are already best buddies. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Chris, are you in competition for the most interesting man in the world? Is that what you're trying to do?
It is. It's a title that I would love to have, and I don't know. What can I say? I've got a lot of interests, and it's for me. It's about life. For me, is how do you pursue your passions, and when you do that, you have fun. You find other great people who you can also have fun with.
That is the truth. So I guess we might as well get this party started here.
Yeah.
I got to start the interview, and I'm sorry we got to start it with this because I'm sure you're probably tired of it by now, but I got to ask about Top Shot. And the reason I got to ask about Top Shot first is because I was looking at your biography on your website, and I have to read this because it's just so absurd. I couldn't comprehend it. But it says, in 2011, you decided to do something wacky and audition for the show where you ultimately won. But, and this is the part that I found really interesting, for those that don't know, at the time, Chris had not won a single shooting award or partaken in any formal shooting instruction.
I love that.
So
that's amazing.
I guess my question is, how?
Yeah, that is definitely a great question. And for me, my journey was being a fan of Top Shot. Seasons 1 and 2, and after seeing and being inspired by these amazing challenges, right, the weapons that they were shooting, I had this crazy idea that maybe I could go on and compete. And when I applied an audition for the show, I knew that I was way behind the curve, right, on my experience, on my technical know-how, and I dove into learning, right, as much as I could about marksmanship, about technique. And basically treated it like a part-time job. So at the time I was working at Google, and that was a 50-hour-a-week job. And I was spending 20 to 25 hours a week on top of that, right, learning about marksmanship. A lot of the, since I didn't have a lot of gun friends either, a lot of my resources were blog posts, YouTube videos, podcasts, right, just like in books, just like trying to learn as much as I could. And really, I zeroed in on the core fundamentals of marksmanship, right? So, sight picture, sight alignment, trigger squeeze, breathing control. And taking that focus allowed me to, use whatever weapon that they put in our hands. And, so many of my competitors got hung up on, if they put a Glock 34 in our hands and someone hadn't shot a Glock 34 before, they kind of got a little flustered. But for me, it's like, well, look, I haven't shot like most of these guns before, so I don't really care. I don't have any baggage or hangups about it. But, I was, again, back to that passion. It was not just an area of passion, but an extreme area of curiosity for me, right? To learn, how do guns really work? How do I, really, compete at this, high level when I know I'm the underdog, total, kind of nobody who, on some level, like shouldn't even be on the show because I don't have, like you said, I don't have any accolades or awards, to my name. But, that's, I think, the brilliant thing about marksmanship is, you can put in the hard work. And if you're smart about it and you're dedicated enough to the craft, right, you can do amazing things. And that was a challenge that I really wanted to see how well could I do, right, going up against some of the best shooters in the world.
And I think you did pretty well.
Yeah, apparently champion is how you did.
Yeah. I think what you said about focusing on the fundamentals and that kind of applying across all kinds of guns is really kind of awesome. We don't often hear that perspective. It's a lot of, oh, I only shoot this and I shoot it very well. But a lot of people forget that marksmanship is based on those fundamentals, and it can be applied. And
Absolutely.
Part of what we do is shooting all kinds of stuff. We're always shooting different rifles, shotguns, pistols, etc. And I feel like that type of mentality goes the same. Like I'm not even close to as good of a shooter as you, but I feel like doing that has made me better overall. And I feel like you went even a step beyond that, or multiple steps beyond that.
Way beyond.
Yeah, and took it to a whole new level. That's really cool, man. I don't think I've ever heard you say that. I've seen a bunch of interviews, but never seen you kind of dive into the fundamentals. So that's pretty cool.
I guess.
Yeah, and there's this framework of 10,000 repetitions is the minimum baseline required to really begin to master a skill, and that was the kind of approach that I took to training. And I literally probably dry fired my pistol, I don't know, 15,000-20,000 times, right, over the course of a 5-month period, and that's not including live fire, right, practice as well. So it's you've got to make prioritize what's important to you, and then carve out and dedicate the time that's required, and train, study, and work really hard.
That's a good lesson for anything in life, really. Yeah. Applying that kind of stuff, not just guns. So, real quick, I mean, given you mentioned you didn't have a lot of friends in California who were gun people, I would imagine working at Google, there's probably not too many. But what was your first experience with a firearm? Can you just touch on that real quick for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my father was in the U.S. Navy, and his Navy experience going through officer training was his first experience with firearms. And after I was born, like a lot of first-time fathers, he started thinking to himself, "Well, okay, I'm now responsible, not just for his for my mom, but now he's responsible for me," and decided that buying actually 2 firearms, right, for home defense was a good idea. And so when I was 6 years old, my father decided it was an appropriate time to teach me the basics of safety, firearm safety, and education, and marksmanship. But we didn't shoot very often. It was one of these things where I would of course be really excited to go to the range with my father, but we would go for an hour or two, rent a lane, punch some holes in paper, and then the guns go back in the safe for 3 to 4 years, right? And then I wouldn't shoot again, for another 3 or 4 years at a time.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, it certainly puts it more into perspective then as to how you got to where you were.
Yeah, I think everybody kind of has their own, story about
absolutely
when they got in, and it's always interesting to me hearing, the age difference, because I didn't get serious about shooting until I was in my 20s.
Oh, the first time
I shot when I was a Boy Scout.
Yeah, that was the first time I ever touched a gun, was in Boy Scouts.
So it's cool 12. To hear that your dad kind of instilled that in you in an early age. And one of the most common questions we get is,
what's the appropriate age?
When do I do this with my child? And I think we typically tell them, when they're responsible enough, and only you can judge that because that's the truth. Yeah. But I think that 5 to 6 is really when kids start to understand and be able to do those sorts of things safely. So that's cool. Very cool, man.
And it is a really challenging question that kind of hard to pinpoint on a specific age range. But like you said, I mean, every parent's able to judge whether their kid's responsible enough, whether they understand the gravity of the situation, right? That firearms are not toys, right? The Super Soaker is different, right, than a Browning Buckmark. So every kid's different, and obviously it's up to a parent, right, to evaluate when is the right time to introduce their children to firearms.
Absolutely. So here's a random jump, not a segue. We're just going to take a flying leap here.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So in addition to obviously being an accomplished shooter that didn't have any formal training, really, you're also a musician. What what's in the musical world that you do?
Yeah, I mean, for me, music has been a lifelong hobby and passion. Um, Long story short, I started in fourth grade learning to play violin, and then 3 years later, I learned how to play the double bass. So this like the big upright bass that looks like a oversized
Like
cello.
jazz, what they use in jazz, some jazz.
Yep, exactly. So, I'm jazz trained and a classically trained bassist. And I played through college, but then, after college, it just became hard to kind of keep that up. And so I'm a baritone singer as
Wow.
well. And so I sing with the San Francisco Symphony Chorus, which is an amazing group. And to sing with a world-class symphony is amazing. I'm going into my 8th season, this year. So, music for me, it's you know, I like to think about the skills that I have, whether it's music or firearms or, my day job, I'm back in Silicon Valley, and how do I fully leverage my skill set across different interests? And, for me, back to the 20 to 25 hours a week, for 5 months that I put in to train for Top Shot. Well, you know what? That discipline and the routine really started in music for me, where if anyone who's a musician knows, you need to spend, I mean, thousands, tens of thousands of hours, right, learning scales, right, proper technique, how to read music, how to, emote properly. And that's also, it just comes down to just really raw discipline and repetition. So, being able to take that experience in my music life and apply that to firearms and marksmanship and being an instructor and a competitive shooter, for me, like all of this rolls right together into kind of a big plan, right, for success for me in my life.
I wish I could sing, but
You can't sing?
No, people's ears would bleed if I tried.
Oh man, we have to make that happen at some point.
No,
Yeah,
we
now you have
don't.
to have
We
a podcast.
don't.
So like we're just doing karaoke.
Yes.
We
Yes.
we could make that a reality, just not with me performing.
Okay.
No.
Chris can be
The
baritone.
the answer is no.
Adam can be soprano.
I don't think I could even do that.
You don't think
I can't carry a tune, although I would like to have some. Anyway, I'll just keep singing in the car by myself where no one else can hear me.
You know what, man? I have a big appreciation for music, and knowing how many instruments you play, it gives me new perspective. And I know there are a lot of musicians out there in our audience, people that understand, whatever they played when they were a kid, or the guys that still play.
I'm learning.
What's that?
I never told you this. I might as well tell everybody.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I picked up the guitar recently.
I'm so proud of you.
Nice.
It was something I wanted to do in college, and I never stuck with it. And I've played more guitar in it's coming up on 3 months than I did ever in college.
Did you learn a Nirvana song yet?
No.
Like 3 chords or
No,
maybe it was
I'm looking
Green
at the
Day?
blues and stuff like that. I don't really care about learning Nirvana. Although maybe one day after I feel comfortable, you'll get an
Yeah,
Instagram
well,
video of
Nirvana.
Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Adam Kraut is learning how to play mumble rap on the guitar.
Yeah, something like that. And
That's what he's
you guys
doing.
will never hear it because it's for my own personal enjoyment. But yeah, music's hard, and I remember it as a kid. I used to play saxophone.
Did you?
I did.
I was a drummer.
I know.
I've been a drummer for a lot of years. I was in choir and all that kind of stuff too.
Were you
so-
really? You have the voice to sing, I think. Anyway,
I can do that a little bit. But the thing is, Chris, you've had a really interesting life. You started as an officer's kid in the Navy. You got into music very early, and then later into firearms. But that's not it. You don't stop there. There's a lot about people that are successful that I think do this. And what I mean is getting into working on helping other people. I think there's something interesting about successful people that do that very often. They bring themselves to a level and then go, look at this. I can do this for other people.
yeah.
Tell us more about Home for a Home.
Yeah, sure thing. So Home for a Home is a nonprofit organization that I co-founded with a university friend of mine who's a real estate broker. And gosh, must be eight years ago now, and we were having lunch, and he is talking about his dream of launching a nonprofit that basically helped build homes for people in need. So of course, hey, if you've ever got, some kind of a lofty goal, well, there's of course the reality. How are you going to fund it? How are you going to staff it? And so Home for a Home is basically a brand that brokers can associate themselves with. And these brokers, they pledge to donate X% of their commission to Home for a Home, who then coordinates with nonprofits in like Guatemala or Mexico, right? And then they get volunteers, right, to go down to Mexico or Guatemala and actually build these homes, for people in need. So it's kind of modeled after Tom's Shoes, which if you're familiar with Tom's Shoes, like you buy a pair of shoes, then the company gives a pair away to, someone in need. So, based on that model, and, my buddy, he just needed that push. And I remember the key question that I asked him, after he, painted this like amazing vision for what he wanted to accomplish. And he was like, I've been kicking this idea around for years. And I just said to him, like, well, what is stopping you from starting this today? And he thought for a second and he said, honestly, I don't know.
Himself.
I said, okay, well, then, yeah. I said, well, hey, like, I'm here. I'm willing to help you. And right, to your point, John, about, how do we as individuals become a force multiplier, right, in a positive way? And so, me investing, my time, honestly, it was like a small amount of my time to help tee up the 501c3, right, the website. We held some social events, right, with brokers in the Bay Area, right, and we've like built up a network, right, of, I think there's like a few hundred brokers now, and there's been, I think, like 20, 30 homes built. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but it's been very gratifying. For my friend, and to know that I played, a small part in helping, kick that off the ground is, it's something that, it makes me feel good that we're able to help people in need.
That's awesome. I'm a big fan of people wanting to help other people, not the proverbial, for lack of a better description, gun being held to your head, but people who actually just on their own accord want to go do it on their own terms. I think that's fantastic.
Well, what's really curious to me is that there are so many people in the firearms industry specifically that are always looking to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about the type of people that are involved in shooting and things of that nature. I don't know what it is exactly, but I love the fact that so many people are willing to give back as much as or more than they have. They want to do everything they possibly can to give everybody a great life, and that's amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I see time's ticking away here, and I know that we have you for a limited amount, and we've got a couple more things we want to blast through here. So this is a topic I don't really want to harp on all that much, but I think it's important we just briefly touch on it. Other than Jeff Bluevman, who was also the champion of a TV show, you're the only other person that I would consider who's highly visible in the firearms industry or community that I know is openly gay. And I apologize if I'm missing anyone else on that. But back in 2013, it was late 2013, December, I think you posted on your blog about that, and you kind of came out. Why did you feel it was important to do that? I mean, obviously, you're, as we're finding out here, you're a multifaceted individual and you're a very interesting person, but why specifically was that something that you felt was important to put out there?
Yeah, it is. It's important for each of us as individuals to let everybody know, like, well, who are we? What are we about? And very much in the same vein that if you just like look at me and maybe listen to me talk, like you may not know that I'm gay. Just in the same vein that if you look at me and listen to me, that you may not know that I'm a gun owner either. Right. So in my mind, it's the exact same reason that I want, it's obvious, for me that, hey, like being gay is it's a core part of who I am. I'm also a gun owner, and, I'm not afraid or ashamed to talk about it, to make that part of my life known. Especially I live in San Francisco, right, which is, big anti, kind of gun capital of the world. But, if I can't be afraid to be who I am. And so, coming out, my blog post was, for me, the main point was really to say that the firearms community is a very diverse one, that it's very welcoming. And one of the big ironies in this whole experience for me is that the firearms community has accepted me as a gay person more than the gay community has accepted me as a gun owner.
Wow.
And for me, like, there's just a lot of hypocrisy and cognitive dissonance around this concept, right? That gun owners are usually so stereotyped that, right, we're bigoted, we're racist, we're sexist, and, not welcoming. All right. And then supposedly, right, the gay community is supposed to be this like big, welcome, warm rainbow bear hug, the community. And, both characterizations are not, they're not completely true, nor are they completely false. But, the main point is, again, that the firearms community is very diverse. And, I've been very, welcomed and embraced. And that's a narrative that your average American, I don't think, understands or knows about, because all they see is just the negative stuff, that they hear about in the news with, crimes being committed with firearms, by criminals. Like, that is the context that a lot of people, view guns under.
That is a excellent point.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you said the gay community is a little bit more
in that regard. Yeah, a little less accepting.
I think that's interesting.
No, it certainly is, and Chris rightly pointed out, it is a little bit of a hypocritical stance to take.
The gun community as a whole, at least, there's
jerks in every community. I mean, we might as well just say it. There are absolutely jerks in every community, but
that's right.
The overarching part of the firearms community that I've dealt with has been nothing short of, as we were talking about earlier, fantastic people.
Yeah, well, most people, they're like, tell me about yourself, and if that gets, for any gun owner, if that ever gets included, most people are like, oh, cool. Yeah. And what kind of guns do you shoot? You know what I mean? Like, they're far more focused on being a gun owner and being a Second Amendment supporter than, your sexual preference. It's amazing to me. It's amazing. Yeah. I think there's so many incredible people that come from diverse backgrounds all over the country, and now even more so than ever since 2012, since that kind of influx of new shooters happened. We've seen an explosion of
different kinds of people,
new types of different people that are all on the same page.
Right. So speaking of other things, since that obviously doesn't make the whole picture, when we talked on the phone earlier this week preparing for this and, just general stuff, we found out that we both really like food. Not because it's something that not because it's something that we as human beings need to eat to stay alive, but it turns out you have family in our area, because you mentioned to me, cheesesteaks in Philadelphia. I went, yeah. Where's a good cheesesteak? Because I've lived here, and so here's a question for you. Since you travel quite a bit, top 5 foods you have, and where, if you can.
This is exciting.
Ooh. Yeah, well, so we were just all in Las Vegas for SHOT Show, and Bouchon, in the Venetian is just an amazing place to eat. French dining, and I had a steak frites dish. It was just phenomenal. And this is not in any ranking order. Just you said top 5. So number 2 would be In-N-Out Burger. Here on the West Coast. I
am so hungry now.
In-N-Out. It's literally the best $2.50 that you will ever spend, and you get this amazing burger. Let's see, number 3. Let's see. Gosh, let's go to Philly. The Jim's versus Geno's and Pat's. That will be a classic, right? Like, debate that just rages on. I love.
Which side are you on?
I used to be a Pats guy for years, but then I jumped ship and was a Geno's, fan for a number of years, and now I think I'm more of is it Ed's? I think right on is it on like South or like 6th Street or something? But anyway,
Jim's is down on South Street.
There we go.
We can still be friends. Good.
There's a lot of good food in Philly.
Yeah.
So that's 3. That's 3.
Yeah. Let's see. 4. oh gosh, let's see, some amazing food. You know, one of the best sandwiches that I ever had was in Cleveland, Ohio, and it was you know, a late night, you know, 2 a.m. in the morning kind of situation. And the whole concept of, you know, hot sandwiches that have coleslaw and French fries like jammed into the sandwich. That was, I mean, the hardest in a sandwich, but it was like phenomenal, like delicious. Like I want that again.
Number 5.
And I'm like, yeah, number 5. You know,
I think we're losing him there just a hair.
Yeah. Bummer. Hold on. We'll see if we can pick Chris back up because it looks like it's...
for it.
Yeah.
how about now?
I kind of hear
Am I
you.
now?
Yeah. All right.
There
yeah.
we go.
All right.
There we go.
Number 5.
Number 5, we're going to keep it real simple. New York style pizza. It's just so simple, right? Anybody who's got a buck, right, can get a really just tasty slice of pizza. I love just like eating it on the sidewalk, you know, in Manhattan. It's pretty, I don't know, it's kind of a special but simple experience for me.
And those slices of pizza are not small by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Well, now that I'm sufficiently hungry, thanks.
So we got one last thing,
and we know you got to get moving.
Tongue.
So
everybody wants to talk about it. It's gonna suck. Nobody wants to talk about this, but Florida. It was a tragedy. We all, I think at this point, anybody that's listening to the TGC podcast knows about the Parkland shooting. But, Chris, we want to get your thoughts. You've been in unique positions all over the industry since winning on Top Shot. What do you think, brother?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's another tragedy, and you know, kind of where my mind immediately goes is, you know, for your average American who's not on the pro-gun or the anti-gun side of things, you know, what do they make of all this? And I think it's pretty fair to say that, you know, you have you know, historically a do-nothing Congress that you know, kind of talks a lot about, well, what could we change or do better? And you know, there are some good ideas, there's some bad ideas, but you know, how do we break the cycle? Right, that's ultimately we're all driving towards the same goal, which ultimately is this isn't about guns, right? It's about safety. It's about reducing the amount of incidents, the amount of people, right, that are getting killed. And you know, for me, right, it really, a lot of it focuses around mental health. But right, we keep on talking about, oh, you know, mental health improvements, but you know, is anything actually happening? So, you know, we really need leadership from our president, from Congress, you know, from our elected officials to, you know, make some hard decisions, to, you know, do the hard work, the heavy lifting that's required to shepherd change right through the system. And this is hard, right? I mean, if you then dial back into, you know, pro versus anti-gun folks, clearly, right, we're on very opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of how we think, right, this problem should be solved. But you know, I think back to your average American, you know, they're frustrated, rightfully so. Nobody wants to see more people, you know, getting killed. It's numbing, and that's not a good. You know, that's not a good place. You know, for us to be where, you know, no one wants to talk about this anymore. Like we need to continue talking about it, and you know, I can and thank you guys for you know, giving me an opportunity to speak on the subject, because the only way that we're going to get anything to change is if we do continue talking about it and applying, you know, pressure on our elected leaders to, you know, help shepherd us through, you know, hopefully a safer era in our country.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are very reluctant to allow any politician to open their mouth, just based on track record. You know, so many politicians have tried to pretend like this is a different issue than we're actually up against, because legislating something around mental health is a very, very difficult prospect. Dealing with this issue is more difficult than I think anyone in Washington is willing to admit. And it's great to hear your thoughts on that. I seriously appreciate that, man.
Yep. So, Chris, we know you got to get running there. We know you got another
scoot. Yeah.
meeting coming up. But real quick, where can people find out more about you?
So topshotchris.com is my website, and I'm active on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube at Top Shot Chris.
Awesome. Well, Chris,
and there you have it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening to join us. I know you were bouncing in between meetings, so we appreciate you carving out the time.
My pleasure. Thanks again for having me. Had a great time.
We'll catch you around. Bye, Chris.
Man, this is not easy. You know, we start bringing up those emotions that come about when you talk about a mass shooting. It's tough, man. It's tough. But what we're going to do before we get into our discussion of it, because I know everybody wants to hear that discussion or be a part of that discussion. And if you're watching on YouTube live, you can go ahead and post any questions you might have in that comment section. Izzy is out there watching, and he will be feeding us questions. But it's time to pay the bills. It's halftime in the show, and that means you guys need to hear about Freedom Munitions. They are putting out good quality ammunition at affordable prices. They've got lines like the Hush, which you know we love, the subsonic stuff. I don't think we had this conversation, Adam. I really, really enjoy the 10 millimeter Hush. Now, that is a very backwards kind of round.
I don't get it.
You don't have to get it. It's fun to shoot. That's what matters. That's what matters. It's a 200 grainer. Anyway, freedommunitions.com. If you punch in the code TGC5, you'll get 5% off your order over there, and we seriously appreciate when you guys do that.
Yes, and our other sponsor is Holosun. So we opened up that box of optics last week and a half ago, and started throwing them on literally every rifle we could find that needed an optic that was in this that was in this building. And I took one home, which I meant to pull it out of the safe earlier today, and I just didn't get around to it. But I'll try and grab some pictures tomorrow of my 2A rifle with that on there.
The rifle?
Yeah.
I'm
anyway,
stealing that. That's a term from Ebbs. Go ahead.
Anyway, so the rifle's got one on there, and I'm excited to get it out to the range, see what it can do, and they are making affordable optics that are good in quality. And my favorite part about the optic is it's got an EOTech-ish reticle in it, and I really liked the EOTech reticle. I just didn't care for the EOTech itself.
The circle and a dot.
Yeah, the circle and a dot. Man-sized target. Wham! Not that I am qualified to talk about that stuff. Anyway, holosun.com. Go check them out. We are very impressed with their stuff here, and we have a lot of friends in the industry who are as well. And real quick, speaking of YouTube comments, just a big shout-out to Civilian Arms, who mentioned DB Fries down in Bethany Beach, Delaware. Love their stuff. Delicious.
Hi, I'm in Delaware.
All right. Small wonder state,
Adam,
think it is.
It's time. We have to do this. You know what? I was on the. We're gonna deviate a little. I was on the phone last night with Johnny from 182nd Ideas, Gun Drama Johnny, and Johnny is not always all about drama. He's a good dude, and we were talking, and I was walking through the grocery store, and he started. We had the discussion about Florida. And the reaction I had was just anger. I'm pissed off, man. I'm so frustrated with the fact that not only do we have to deal with the fact that 17 families are now mourning the loss of their loved one, and that's a massive thing. The entire community has to deal with that. The entire community has to go, we were abused, we were attacked
for no reason
other than I don't know that we will get an actual reason. The guy's still alive, unfortunately, but the point is they were attacked. So not only that, but now as firearms owners, we are fighting the same old BS that we fight every single time. It wasn't even 12 hours before, Dianne Feinstein, Nancy Pelosi, insert name here, stupid politician, was running their mouth and pointing the finger at firearms.
It was within, minutes on the news.
It's unbelievable to me. First of all, that is incredibly disrespectful. Second of all, you don't have any of the details. You are just literally going on pure speculation, pointing the finger. And it's really, really frustrating as somebody that tries to, I try to be compassionate. I try to align myself and try to put myself in the shoes of the parents that have to now bury their kids. I mean, this is not okay. But somehow the discussion gets skirted, and we now have to deal with the fact that a politician wants to remove a right from millions of Americans because of the acts of one psychopath. It's incredibly frustrating. I mean, if you can't tell, it pisses me off.
Well, every time time and time again, we see it. And so for those that missed it, I posted something on my Facebook page.
Your statement was actually really, really good.
I posted it earlier today because I had some time to reflect on it, and I didn't want to come out of the gate swinging. But the one thing I left out of it, which I don't think anybody is ever going to be able to point to an example of it, and if you can, please feel free to prove me wrong, but when in the history of mankind has banning anything ever been successful? Ever.
Making something more illegaler doesn't stop it from happening.
Exactly. I mean, you all you need to do to understand this concept is look through history. I mean, you can point to drugs, you can point to prohibition, you can point to guns in other countries, you can point to instances where religion was banned.
Yeah.
And yet people still practiced it in secret and preserved it for future generations. You're not going to be able to ban an inanimate object and be successful in it, number one. Number two, even if you were, and I'll even throw out the hypothesis, even if you could do that, you're never ever going to be able to legislate away morality, right and wrong, and evil. You're just never going to do it. If somebody wants to find a way to hurt somebody or somebodies, they're going to find a way to do it. There were initial reports I saw, and I didn't follow up, so I don't know if they were true, but he had looked into bomb making and that there were bombs on the campus. I mean, we very easily could have had a very similar situation where he walked into the school, threw a couple pipe bombs around, and just blew people up.
They still would have blamed guns at that point, which is part of the problem that we have here. But
the point is that if somebody wants to do harm, they're going to. You can't remove that capability.
You
from
can't
somebody.
Legislate evil. You cannot do that. And I think the problem that a lot of there's no doubt in my mind that 90%, maybe more than that, of Americans are on the same page with what the end result needs to be. Less people losing their lives, innocent people losing their lives over something like this. Right? I think we can agree. The challenge is how we get there.
Right.
And what was very interesting is what we're seeing because of this school deal is we're seeing, I'm a teacher, I know best. And this is the thing. We're seeing, all over social media today. There was somebody that commented on your post that said, I'm a teacher and getting these guns closer. It was the discussion of guns in the classroom, teachers defending themselves and things of that nature. This person said that getting guns closer to these kids was a problem. And I felt that it was shocking and very frustrating, again, that somebody that claims to be an educator does not have basic logic in her brain.
Well,
the proximity of an inanimate object to a human being does not raise or lower the safety. I don't understand how all of these emotions are being put in the forefront. I need to feel safer. It's not about feeling safer. It's about being safer. It's about making sure that kids are okay when they go to school. How do we get there?
Well, so going to that, because I I looked through and I sent you some screenshots of some of the comments I was getting, but the one that I found kind of fascinating was that I was accused of having blood on my hands, as well as the NRA, for all of the gun deaths that occurred in the country. And I find that really interesting because last I checked, I never murdered anybody.
I was called a rapist today because I'm a white male, and all shooters are white males.
Clearly that was not the case.
This is what I was told.
I know. My point is that I was looking at this and I'm thinking, well, no, you're wrong, because you failed to take action. What you want to do is come up with something that in a fantasy land where we all can sit together and sing Kumbaya, if you removed something from that fantasy world that doesn't exist, that no more bad things would happen because it's not there. The reality of the situation is this. Every time you try and stifle a solution to the problem, like allowing armed guards in schools, allowing teachers who want to,
allowing people to have the choice to defend themselves.
Right. And this is, I saw there was a teacher who commented, well, I don't want to have a firearm. That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. I don't think there should be a mandate that you have to, but I think teachers who want to take that responsibility on should be able to do so.
And everybody should be educated on how it works.
Right. Absolutely. But I think that every time these people who say we need a solution now, every time they stifle a realistic solution, they're the ones who are at blame.
We need a solution, but not that one.
Right. Because they don't like the answer. They're part of the problem.
And to be fair, that happens on both sides of the aisle. Nobody will move on this discussion. The people that are against guns are going to be against it.
Yes.
The people that are for guns are for guns.
Right.
I want to make a quick point to the people that are out there watching. If you're arguing with somebody on Facebook or Instagram or some other social media, I understand the human nature, the want to argue and prove yourself right, but nobody's going to move based on a Facebook argument. Just newsflash, that's not happening. It's not. There's actually a human behavior. When you're told you're wrong, you dig in.
Yeah, there's a couple things people don't like. One is being told they're, oh yeah, watch this. The other is, you can't do that. Oh yeah, check this out.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing. But I think the Florida tragedy is real. I saw somebody. I didn't see it. I was listening to the radio on my way into the city last night, and I tried to call in and talk to him. It was Breitbart. I tried to call in and be part of the discussion because I felt like it was relevant. But somebody suggested having TSA-like checkpoints at schools.
Oh, somebody mentioned that on my Facebook.
They don't work at the airport.
Well, that's true.
They don't. They don't work at the airport.
Well, maybe if you hired semi-competent people.
But you know what? The best theory I've seen for protecting a school, put multiple veterans, armed veterans, at the schools and give them a job. There are plenty of veterans that are out of work. Put these guys out of school. Give them an M4 or whatever they need.
There are solutions to the problem that don't involve the banning of an inanimate object.
Absolutely.
And it's incumbent upon society to look at those, have a serious discussion about them, and find the best way to move forward so that we can prevent stuff like this from occurring again.
I want to see if we've got any good questions here.
No. So I think that's what needs to happen. And
it's tough, man. This is a really, really tough topic.
It is.
What do you do? What do you do?
Well,
I can't believe the police didn't kill the kid.
They might not have had to. You don't know how they found him.
I don't. But
if he wasn't posing a threat, what do they get? Yeah, I mean,
yeah. Then that's a whole nother issue,
right? At that point in time.
Oh.
But speaking, I guess, of what can you do about it? Well, it seems like New Jersey's got some ideas as far as, generally speaking, how to do it. The other day, and I posted this on Facebook as well, the New Jersey governor, Phil Murphy, who is absolutely an enemy of the Second Amendment and gun owners, held a round table, if you want to call it.
Round tables are not good. We experienced that.
Yeah, well,
we don't do round tables.
His round table really just kind of involved like Ceasefire New Jersey, the Brady campaign, Giffords, Mom Demand. So basically everybody who would sit in a circle sing Kumbaya and let's pass all these things. So among other things, they want to pass background checks on private sales, and I honestly don't know the state of that stuff in New Jersey. They want to this one makes me laugh, actually, because they want to pass a bill that will make it harder to get a carry permit in New Jersey, where it's already
really difficult,
impossible to get one anyway. So, like, I don't know.
Let's make it harder for people to defend themselves and have free will.
That's the thing. Like, when has this stopped somebody who's a criminal? All you're doing is restricting the ability of somebody who is working within the confines of the law.
The logic isn't there.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. They also want to ban armor-piercing ammunition, ban 50 caliber rifles, and limit gun magazine capacities to 10 rounds.
Armor-piercing is in quotes, so we don't know what that actually means.
Yeah, and I don't want to look, but essentially they didn't invite anybody, either the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs or the New Jersey Second Amendment Society. And Scott Bach is quoted as saying how they call it a roundtable when there's no one to speak for New Jersey's 1 million law-abiding gun owners. They talk about wanting to have and this is a very good point from Scott, and he does sit on the NRA board. They always want to talk about having a conversation about gun issues, but this was more like a monologue.
There is no conversation.
Right. And that's a very fair point. It's not a conversation. It's a lecture, and then it's not a... and I know everybody hates this word. It's not a compromise. It's just, we want concessions out of you. Yeah. Compromise indicates that everybody's giving and taking, but what it always ends up being is that gun owners have to concede.
Yeah, and first of all, there is no compromise to make.
Right. Absolutely
We don't need to make any... I think Adam and I wholeheartedly agree.
Right. Just in case there was any confusion about that.
In case you didn't know this.
Anyway, so yeah, New Jersey moving to restricted citizens' rights even more because, well, why not, right?
So I don't know that we need to really bother putting this up on the screen, but this is basically
I'll do Kansas. It for the picture.
Kansas is talking about putting
Eddie
Eagle back into schools.
And yes, that is something that we here wholeheartedly support. It's something I've been saying.
I want to preface this. It doesn't matter that it's an NRA program.
Right.
I know a lot of people are very unsure is the nicest way to put it about the NRA currently. I don't care about that. Educating people, children, etc. on firearm safety is huge. It's massive. So being able to put that back in schools is going to be incredible. I mean, Adam and I have been advocates of youth shooting for a very, very long time. I mean, since we were youth.
That's where I learned to shoot.
Right.
I learned gun safety as a kid through programs. Man. Yeah, through the Boy Scouts. And I've been saying since, not to keep bringing up the NRA or the board stuff, but I've been saying since the very beginning, we should put firearms education back in schools because there's a number of advantages to it, including the fact that children will know what to do if they find a firearm as opposed to thinking it's a toy. We can save lives and this goes back to the point we were talking about earlier. There's something that you can definitively do to make a positive impact to reduce a problem, and the other side wants nothing to do with it because it goes against what they want.
It's like trying to teach somebody how to cook, but you can't because there's fire involved.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
That just came out of my brain. I'm proud of that.
That's amazing. So Kansas looking at a proposal, which I hope it passes. I hope they put it back in schools because I think everybody will benefit.
I know there are a few guys out there. I think it's Mark from Fit and Fire. He's a YouTuber that is from Kansas, and Tim from Military Arms Channel is originally from there. I don't know what their community is like, their gun culture in Kansas. Is it generally pro-gun?
I don't know. I would imagine it's a red state. So
yeah, we don't typically hear about Kansas being anti-gun, so I guess we're going to assume the other way.
And I think if it gets passed, it'll be a great petri dish to point to in future years of saying, hey, look, we implemented this here. This has been our results. We should implement it over here and over here. And as you pointed out earlier, the fact that it's an NRA program is inconsequential. It's the message of the program that's important.
I would really like to see somebody beyond the NRA doing this, like a privately funded thing, but
I don't think it matters.
I don't know.
Anyway,
does the GOA have anything comparable?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I mean they're not the same size organization by any means, but I would love to see more organizations pushing for that. And while we're on the topic of organizations pushing for education, I would love to see more education of people in the educational system, like educating the educators, teachers, administrators,
as far as
professors on firearms.
Well, yeah,
I would love to see those programs be available to those people.
Okay, yeah,
based on their profession.
Yes. Oh, and that's something that is incumbent upon individuals like I, listeners, and I've been saying this for a very long time too. If you want to change the public discourse on firearms, it's incumbent upon all of us to take coworkers, friends, acquaintances who are somewhere in the middle,
gun curious,
gun unsure, not rabidly anti-gun because that person probably doesn't want anything to do with it or won't have an open mind, but people who have an open mind that you can give them a positive experience with so they can go back and go, maybe everything I've been told is not quite true.
Sure.
Until that day. Anyway, so moving on, the Winter Olympics are rocking, and I stumbled upon an interesting article, The Anatomy of a Biathlon Rifle.
They are weird.
Not only are they weird, they weird, they're very expensive and unique. So,
talk to me, Goose. Yeah. What's it all about?
Well, there's a video in the article that kind of goes through it all. But the interesting things to me were, one, you can see where my mouse is, and for those who are,
they can't see your mouse at all.
They can't. Okay, well, that's right. So for those that are listening, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe what the rifle.
So the fore end.
Yes.
I love this.
Paint us a picture.
Describing things. So we're going to start from the muzzle.
Okay.
On top of the muzzle is a very, very traditional peep sight. Okay. And that is a circular tube mounted on top of the barrel. And it's kind of a medium contour. I would say that's what do you think? That's an 18-inch barrel, 20-inch? It's difficult to say.
I have no idea.
I don't know. It's a medium contour barrel, wood stock on this particular one. I've seen composite-looking ones, whatever. The magazines are actually in the side of the fore end. They mount horizontally into there. On the opposite side of the magazines is actually backpack-style straps so that they can throw the rifle over when they're skiing. I'm making skiing pole motions for the people that are listening. I'm doing it.
They described it in the video as a harness.
Okay, yeah. So basically,
it's like a backpack.
It's there to. It's a minimalist way to hold that rifle securely. And moving rearward, you've got the traditional rear peep sight. It is, I believe, a straight pull bolt action 22.
It is a Fortner bolt.
Fortner?
Yeah. So it does operate like a straight pull.
So is that similar to like that PWS kind of rock and lock kind of thing?
I don't guess. I don't know how to describe it. The video is interesting, but the other fascinating part was like the sights have flip covers on them to protect against snow for if it's snowing or the person takes a spill.
It is the Winter Olympics.
Winter Olympics. They do have a strap that links to the forearm for stabilization. They're shooting 22. And it has a 5-round magazine. They have up to 8 rounds per stage, and they have to hand load the other 3 rounds if they end up needing more.
Is it 22 long rifle, or is it something different? Like 22
it didn't say. It said 22, so I presume it's probably long rifle, but don't quote me on
I would love. You know what? If anybody out there listening, and this is a long shot, if anybody knows where one of these rifles is, or can get a hold of one, or let us borrow one, or something along those lines, I would love
borrow one.
To try that out.
Let us borrow it.
Well,
we'll send it back. We promise.
I don't want to keep it.
Yeah,
that thing's expensive.
I know.
But if anybody out there has any idea where to get a hold of one of those biathlon rifles, and I don't mean a style like biathlon style, I mean an actual rifle. That would be incredible, and I'd love to make that a feature on TGC. That'd be really neat.
It would certainly be rad. So speaking of rad, and I know that you'll dig this and everyone else will hate us for it, boycott us, and...
Nobody's going to boycott us for this.
Well, I don't know. It's
ridiculous.
It's for Springfield. But I did see an article on the firearm blog. If you want to upgrade your XDS palm safety to something that's aluminum, you can now do it.
I don't get
this. And I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know why you would want to do this.
Other than the description says it all. Want to add a little more color to your Springfield XDS? No. Nobody wants to add color to their Springfield XDS.
Well, what are the color options? Black and silver. Yeah, you're really adding a lot of flair to that, guys.
It's anodized in 8 different colors, it says.
Oh.
And those would be blue, black, gray, OD green, purple, and red. And I don't think that's 8. I'm not a math major, but I can count to 10.
I don't math so good, but if you buy one of these, you're an idiot.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
That's dumb. Listen, I own the gun. I'm allowed.
All right. Well, yeah, so in things that nobody ever asked for news. And
are you stealing something? I do that every week on TGC News. And in blah 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 news.
No, that was the last one, and I guess I forgot to lead with that. But in
I love it.
In Poetic Justice news,
nice.
Big cat poachers mauled to death and eaten by a pride of lions. He was hunting with only his head remaining at a South African game reserve.
Well, that's kind of interesting. Hey, what the Daily Mail? They're really an accurate resource on firearms related stuff, aren't they?
Well, we're not talking about firearms related stuff. We're talking about a pride of lions eating somebody, and I thought it was lighthearted and fun.
Poetic justice at its best.
Yeah. So apparently, the lesson here is don't poach, otherwise a pride of lions will eat you.
How do you feel about hunting in Africa?
I don't have as far as what.
Well, there's
I feel like it would be hot.
There's a lot of people. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that feel that hunting big game in Africa is not okay.
No.
For instance, elephants.
Yeah,
lions.
it goes. The amount of money that one tag costs goes to the preservation of how many animals? There's
it's ridiculous.
It's
like
huge.
The
it's huge for the conservation of it. I don't have any problem with it as long as you're doing it legally.
I believe there was an episode of Adam Ruins Everything. It's not you, Adam. It was...
I do ruin a lot of things, though.
That's true.
People watch me and they're like, oh, I can't do that. Damn.
There's a show called Adam Ruins Everything, I believe, and they explain why hunting in Africa is actually good for Africa and the game.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And to be fair, I have a weird thing in my brain about hunting cats, but I don't know if a lion falls into that.
It is a cat. It's a very big house cat.
I don't know where that line gets drawn. I'm not. I wouldn't call myself a purebred hunter. I've hunted pigs. I hunted a nilgai, and I'd love to hunt just about anything in North America and Africa. But yeah, I was curious about your thoughts on that.
I don't have a problem with it, but I mean, this is just.
Well, I know some gun guys that are not hunters.
Well, I don't.
Do you want to go pig hunting?
Duh.
Bacon?
Yeah, well, they're also a nuisance, so I don't feel bad.
Well, pigs are easy.
I've been deer hunting before, and quite honestly, sitting in a tree stand, freezing in the cold
that's
snow
different.
And sleet. I had no interest in that. I am gonna go shoot doves this year.
That's fun.
Going out
Shotguns.
to Boise. Yeah, and I do like shooting shotguns.
So the Bacon Bash. That has not happened yet. There was some scheduling stuff that didn't work out for that winter. So I'm going to Alabama, and maybe you could come along.
Ooh, that would be cool. Yeah, I'd come. And I know that there was an invitation for me to go shoot some pigs with night vision that I'm going to try and take up this year as well.
That's fun. I've done that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, so moral of the story, you poach, you get eaten by lions in South Africa. Justice.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that either. So, do
we have any questions in our chat room here?
Where did the stuff behind us go?
So behind the Jonas Brothers, our bodyguards here, for those of you that are watching live, this is going to be really uninteresting. This is a concrete wall, and there's a crack in it, and water comes through when it gets kind of moist. And I don't mean kind of, we had an incredible amount of rain and snow and nastiness here, and some water got in, and we had to move them so that things would dry out. And I put a fan here, and yay.
That was the most interesting thing we've talked about this entire episode.
Listen, somebody asked.
Was that dry? Was that dry enough for you? The sarcasm? Was it just dripping out of that wall?
You laid it on there pretty thick.
Good. All right. So for those of you that stopped by the Great American Outdoor Show the last 2 weekends while I was there and saw me on Tuesday,
you saw a lot of
thank
people,
you.
Man.
Yeah, I tried to get pictures with everybody. I did forget occasionally, so I apologize if you weren't made famous with quotes by me. Nothing against you. I just totally forgot to grab the camera and take a picture. But it was great meeting everybody that I met. Thank you so much for stopping by, saying hello. A lot of you asked for John, and I got to tell you that John was not there while I was there.
It's so weird. Normally, like every other year, we've been there tag teaming.
Yeah.
We should try this year. Like normally we were doing like a booth appearance. And
I was working a booth,
yeah,
so I was at a booth appearance for 4 days.
We need to figure that out. Maybe TGC gets a booth there next year. It's not that expensive.
It would depend on availability, but that's a discussion for later. But it was great meeting everybody. Really, that was the point of this.
Cool,
it was so cool meeting a lot of people. Yeah. So
what did you think of the Great American Outdoor Show? Did you get a chance to walk around?
Yeah, I actually wrote an article for Recoil this year on it.
Oh, okay.
And it's funny. I talked to Rob was our guest on the podcast, one of the earlier ones. If you haven't checked that one out, go listen to it. But I was talking to Rob, and he goes, "Yeah, try and find like the guy who's been coming there forever." And I found that guy.
Who was it?
His name escapes me. It's in the article.
His name like Patches or something?
No,
Patches O'Houlihan?
No. So I was in the.
That's a reference.
I was in the press office, and I said, "Hey, I gotta find somebody who's been coming here for a while." And the woman in there was like, "Oh, I know just the person." Took me over to him, and he's 72 years old. That show started in 1955. He's been going since, he thinks, almost the beginning. He said he was a young teenager when he started going.
Wow.
He's had a booth there since the 70s.
What does he do?
So he's a hunting broker. Really interesting, actually. So what he does is he doesn't do guided hunts. He hooks people up with different outfits to go hunt whatever it is they want to hunt. And he does it for people all over the world, which is the fascinating thing. So he's like, "You want to go shoot a polar bear? I can do that for you. But you can't bring the polar bear back to the United States because it's an endangered species." However, other countries don't care. So if you're from that country, you want to go shoot a polar bear and bring it back to your country, you can do that. So what he does is
he could do that.
So he like connects people from different parts of the world to go hunting in different places, and it's crazy. And he's from I think he's from Mechanicsburg. So a very relatively small town in Pennsylvania, which I thought was really kind of neat.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, he's been coming there forever.
So Great American Outdoor Show was cool.
Yes, and there was some neat taxidermy stuff.
That's always. The taxidermy there is incredible.
Although I didn't see the
squirrels.
squirrels.
Of that, it's incredible.
Yeah, I did not see the squirrels with the lightsabers, though.
I didn't see I didn't get a chance to really wander around the outfitter hall this year. I didn't see the canoe squirrel again.
Yeah, there's
that's buried on my Instagram.
I saw somebody had a picture. It almost looked like a Grinch head.
There's some amazing stuff. Anyway,
it was weird.
It's about that time, Adam.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that's it for this week. We thank you all for joining us to hang out.
Yeah, be sure to leave us feedback on iTunes and wherever else you can do that. You can send hate mail to theguncollective@gmail.com.
Make sure you put in the subject hate mail so we just delete it.
Yeah, that goes automatically into the trash.
Spam.
And, of course, our sponsors this week.
Holla Sun.
And Freedom Munitions.
And I guess that's it until next week. Thanks for joining us.
If you're still watching, let us know what you think of us streaming this on YouTube instead of Facebook.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
And
I like that.
Please leave us a review on iTunes. You already said that. Download the podcast, share it with your friends, tell your family. We'll see you next time.